Hi, welcome to Maintain Me's resource channel. I'm Morgan and I'm the director.
Hi, I'm Chelsea and I'm the owner of Maintain Me.
And today we are talking about how to handle an emergency at home. Chelsea, do you want to highlight the top 3 things that we're looking at when we're handling an emergency at home?
Absolutely. I think there's 3 big things that we think are the most important when handling an emergency. Number 1 is identifying what your wishes are. Number 2, communicating them in writing with the goal of doing this prior to an emergency. And number 3, knowing what your resources are, what exists for you at home. Morgan, when we talk about identifying your wishes, can you break that down a little bit as to, maybe the top 3 things that you think are important when identifying?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're having an emergency at home, depending upon where you are at in life and what your wishes are, how you handle that emergency could look differently. So number 1 is your emergency life threatening or limb threatening? Is this something that could cause permanent damage? And so you really want to assess that when you're looking at what is your next steps. And we can go into that a little bit more in depth, but you want to know, okay, what is going on and can this be handled in different ways than just going to an emergency room? So that brings me to the second thing is, are you open to options? So now you see these standalone emergency rooms all over the place. It's like they are almost like a McDonald's. You can see them so frequently. But then there's also rounding groups like Dispatch Health. So that's a rounding group that is an emergency response group, but not an ambulance. It's EMTs, nurse practitioners coming to the house. And then the third thing is, depending upon if you've determined this is a life-threatening emergency, and or if your wishes are to go ahead and treat that life-threatening emergency, then maybe calling 911 is your best option. But if this is, say, the flu or something that is pretty serious but not a life-threatening emergency, perhaps a Dispatch Health or something where they can come to you and treat is your preferred option. If you do decide to go ahead and call 911 for your emergency, or the person that you're caring for's emergency, you need to know which hospital that you want to be taken to, depending upon insurance or closest nearby. So those are all really important to highlight ahead of the emergency. And then Chelsea, why don't you touch on the second piece of this?
Yeah, so communicating this stuff in writing, right? So once you've identified, what type of setting you want your emergency or the situation to be handled in, it's really important to have the things ready that you need ready in case you're not able to in the time of need. So number 1 is going to be your MOST form. A lot of people are familiar with this form in the hospital setting. They always make sure they have a MOST form on hand. Really what it breaks down to is knowing what your directives are. So, are you a DNR or are you a limited? Do you have a CPR directive on how you want that to be carried out? Number 2 is emergency contact. Say for some reason you're not able to make decisions at the time. Who are they supposed to be contacting if you are found down, and who knows, hopefully, what your wishes are. And then that kind of partners up with your power of attorney. So do you have a power of attorney? Is that with these paperwork? I would suggest all of these things to be in a folder. The other thing is probably a medication list with your allergies on it. So these are all very important documents, and I would say at least the minimum of these in a folder somewhere where your emergency contacts knows where they are, so that if for some reason you can't make these decisions, everyone can just pick it up and follow it in accordance to what you want for your life. Morgan, now that we've talked about a little bit of the paperwork side of it, which is kind of the non-fun stuff as well, I think it's important to understand the people and who your resources are through this. Can you talk a little bit about resources in the time of need?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of alluded to this in the beginning is, what type of emergency are you having? If it's life threatening, but you are choosing do not resuscitate, or you are choosing not to seek treatment, perhaps you have a chronic illness, your number one resources to keep you comfortable are going to be looking at hospice and home care to provide your care at home. Also knowing that if it is an injury that you can recover from, that you have home care addition for your support at home, but then you can also look at home health. This is a great time to bring in a case manager if you need help with putting all these resources in place, or perhaps seeking a consultant to help you get some of these affairs in order.
Awesome. So we wanted to keep this really brief on how to handle an emergency. All of these things that we talked about today, obviously we help with, but it's a big task. It sounds that, we could squeeze this all into a 5-minute video about what you need. But when it comes down to it, these things take time, and we just want people to be aware of where to start, how to start having these conversations. They're not easy conversations, but I promise you that when they are put in place, that people feel that they have been heard, and that their lives and their care is carried out in a way that they feel is serving them. And so we always want to be able to try to break it down as simple as we can. If you need resources such as the MOST form or an emergency contact form, or maybe just a basic thing to put your medications into, that's something that we can always help with, and we have no problem sending that over. But I hope this is helpful as to figure out where to start, and that you do have options and you have choice, and there's a lot of resources out there to support you. Anything that we missed, Morgan?
Preparedness always makes an emergency go more smoothly, so just do it ahead of time. But awesome. I think this is a great summary.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Signing off.